welcome to this edition of Business Supes, where we interview local business owners, learn a little bit about them, their business, and their business superpower. So today I am joined by Andrew Wyrrick. And Andrew, I just totally spaced on the name of your company. Reds Roofing?
Yes, sir. Reds Roofing.
All right. Well, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We usually start these interviews off by chatting a little bit about, your origin story. So tell us a little bit about you, what you're all about, and a little bit about the business as well.
So I got started in the construction industry at a very young age. My father has been a builder, custom home builder, and remodeler since before I was born, 30 plus years. My grandfather owned one of the largest commercial construction companies in Oklahoma City before he passed. So most of the people in my family either work in or around construction. Both of them have been maintained family-owned businesses for at least 30 years and longer, and are currently still operating and running in the state of Oklahoma. And so I started working for my father when I was in grade school, middle school, about to go into high school. Typical story, needed to make some extra money. So he handed me a hammer and a hard hat and said, well, go earn it. So that's kind of, learning by fire and having to fix your own mistakes when you make them. It's how I got into it. And then he and I partnered up on his venture for a while, as he does the whole scope of general contracting. And I learned that I am not entirely fond of that. So I stuck with what I like, which is roofing, and recently branched off and decided to pursue my own license, my own company. And that's the route we went. So I found about 17 guys, give or take, depending on the month. If a guy, shows up and does something that is against our company policy, then he unfortunately is alleviated of his position. But we've been running steady, 17 guys crew. We do commercial as well as residential, anything from new construction to storm damage to restoration, water damage, fire, etc. Anything roofing related. So if it's load bearing that you need help with, we also even help out architects when they're designing plans for new homes to make sure that their water flow is proper, that they won't create any high leak areas, and consult for free on stuff like that, because it saves us a headache in the long run and saves the customer a lot of money. So
very cool. So what is it about roofing in particular that drew you in? Because you said that was the part of the construction world that you really liked.
So I found that when dealing with storm damaged customers in particular and replacement type jobs, that most roofing companies will sell a homeowner on all this. It is inaccurate. Most of them wing it and then overcharge to compensate if they run into an issue. And what we found is that with the proper knowledge and staying up to date on products and warranties, we generally save a homeowner anywhere from 21.5% to 30% on the actual price of their replacement if they go with one of the larger companies in Oklahoma. Just because those companies, their overhead, their span of employees, how quickly their turnover rate is going right now, they just tend to overcharge because they have to compensate for the headache that is involved with running a company like that and having such overhead. So we found that by minimizing overhead, doing mostly referral work, with a little bit of retail here and there, we do work for some contractors, but most of it's referral and roof replacement. And what we found by doing that, we don't do any advertising, so we don't incur that overhead charge that is then relayed to the customer. We run a very tight ship, a very low overhead. I run 4 trucks, 17 guys. They work 5 days a week, 6 if necessary. I personally do a lot of the field work that's done after hours. So if you need tarping done at 3 a.m. because a tree falls through your house and you call me, I'll be there within 30 minutes to tarp it to keep you from getting water damage inside the house. So by doing those things, we can not only offer much more custom service and personable service to the customer, but we can also save them a lot of money just by decreasing our own overhead.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So what was it about owning your own business that appealed to you?
Uh, Absolutely nothing because it's very difficult, but it was the only way to go. So it kind of became one of those things where I took several years doing training and courses through manufacturers, getting certifications through certain manufacturers that offer what is, in my opinion, the highest end products and also the best value products for the customer. That I determined that working through someone else just wasn't going to be applicable in the sense of giving someone an honest and realistic price. It's too often that you hear someone get a quote for their roof and it's 30,000 or 40,000 or more. And depending on the roof size, that's realistic. But for Oklahoma, your standard house is somewhere around 2,000 square feet. So to get a $30,000 bid on a roof is rather outrageous. We had a customer recently who got a $33,000 bid, a $27,500 bid, and a $31,000 bid from your three largest companies here in Tulsa. And then when we were contacted, we did the entire job, as well as a few extra things that they weren't going to do for less than 12,000.
Wow.
So that's when I realized that working for someone else and going through their requirements of overcharging to compensate for their overhead, it just wasn't going to work for me. It's not what I wanted to offer the customer. It's not the value I wanted to offer. So to own my own business and to do everything personally, it's kind of the only route that was available.
Okay. Which is interesting because every time I ask that question, one way, shape, or another, it comes back to freedom, right? Freedom, whether it's financial freedom or time freedom or freedom to choose whoever it is you want to work with, or in your case, freedom to be able to have the final say in the product that goes out and what we charge for it. So that's really just been an interesting, interesting occurrence with this, that it always somehow, it's kind of like the 6 degrees of separation, right? But it all comes back to freedom. So that's really, really cool. So is it just roofs?
So we do just roofs. I do have a way to offer other services. My father being in the industry for so long, I have connections with anyone you could want. And I always ask my homeowners when we do the roofs, or I even have people that are not customers of mine that will call me and say, hey, I know you're in the industry. I know you have some insight. Send me a couple references for spray foam insulation, or send me some plumbers or framers. And that's no problem. I love to pass their information on because they're reputable people. They're people that I've worked with since I was young. And if we're in a storm damage type of claim or insurance claim where a tree fell on a house or a house burnt halfway up, I will utilize those guys, and we can do the entire restoration ourselves to keep your margins down. And it's a transparent process where I can get a quote from them, I can get a final bid from them and a final bill, and I just hand that to the customer. I don't mark anything up. The only thing that we do business wise is roofs. So we do have to run margin on roofs. We do have to make money like any other company.
Right.
We have the overhead. So it allows me to offer all the services to the customer at essentially cost, and allows me to know that if my guys are on a roof that was framed by framers that I personally know, I know that they're not going to end up in the living room.
Right. Yeah. So I imagine you probably have seen some pretty interesting things doing construction and roofing. So anything kind of a humorous story, or maybe oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened story that you can think of off the top of your head that would be fun to share?
Oh, there's a plethora of them, but I would say the most interesting thing that happened last year is we roofed a house in the historic district of downtown that was built in 1923, and the roof had a hidden ceiling. So the decking was rotten, had to remove it and replace it. And when we did, we found this hidden cavity between the OSB decking and the inside of the attic, and then what was actually on top of the rafters is the exterior. It was about a 8-inch cavity. And we found newspapers from the 1920s, the 1930s. We found old Civil War rifles and coins, all sorts of interesting things that the homeowner who had recently purchased this property had no idea was there and is now displaying in their living room.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's yeah, you just never know. they got TV shows on these days that that highlight stuff like that happening. So what's your outlook, or what's your your prognostication for 2023? How do you see things going for you?
So 2023, we're off to a very good start. Obviously, the winter months are always slow for roofing companies. We're required to have 40 degrees and rising for install for most manufacturers. Some are a little bit, but predominantly 40 degrees. So we didn't work a whole lot in December, and January was a little bit slow. So I always lump December into the next year because it generally, those jobs lead over and the final bills and processes don't go out until the next year. So, but so far we're off to a great month. We have done 17 roofs this month already. We have another 7 scheduled if the rain will allow it. And then next month we're already at 20 scheduled and on the books. And I would project that this year we would do probably about a 25% increase from last year. It was a rather home run year. 200, just shy of 200 roofs last year is a phenomenal year when you consider rain and weather. So I would imagine that at the rate we're going right now, we would probably hit somewhere around 250, which would be great. And it would give the guys a lot of work and allow us to help a lot of people out.
Okay, that's awesome. So, all right. So the question everybody's been waiting for, what is your business superpower?
So our business superpower comes down to knowledge. My foreman has been doing strictly roofing for over 20 years, and everyone that works for me, the requirement is they have to have been in the industry and an active worker for at least 7. We run like a family unit. Most of the guys on my crew are related, and our superpower is knowing what to do in certain situations to prevent further problems or to improve on previous problems, as well as dealing with insurance. Most homeowners, when they deal with insurance, if an insurance company says no, where do you go from there as a homeowner?
Right.
You don't. Who reads their home insurance policy? Nobody. They have it, they know they're covered, and they think everything's great. Well, we kind of specialize in getting higher payouts for homeowners, getting them further coverages, as well as handling the entire insurance process for them. So the only thing they have to do is sign our preliminary contract that allows us to be their advocate and to argue on their behalf. And then they just sign, they file the claim, and then we handle everything from start to finish, from first payment, last payment, and every document included. We keep a file for them to provide for them at the end of the job for their own records. And we also keep a copy of it in our office so that if they ever need it 10 or 15 years down the road, we have it. And knowing the ins and outs of the insurance company, what their legal obligations are to the customer, the way that that particular business model runs, because it is a business, and that at the end of the day, they are out for a profit. So they're not an for you like everybody so thinks. We find more often than not, everyone thinks insurance is a great deal until they need it. And then they find such a great deal and they wonder what they're paying for. So our specialty is utilizing the insurance coverage you have and making sure that you get maximum coverage for your claim, so you can get everything replaced that is due to you because you've been paying on it for years.
Okay. No, that's a great point. All right. Last question then. What nugget of advice do you have for other business owners?
My nugget for other business owners would be don't give up. No matter what you do, if you know you're doing the right thing, stick to it, because it eventually will work out. And that doesn't mean that you'll be successful, but you'll learn something through it. And that's all life is about. Learn and grow as you go and become the best person you can be. So my advice would just be simply don't give up. And if you fail, you just figured out a way not to do it.
No, and that's fantastic advice. I'm actually listening to Think and Grow Rich right now, and it's kind of funny you bring that up, because that was one of the 30 things that people do that causes them to fail is to give up. And there are so many stories out there about if you just gone a little bit further, it really would have worked out well for you. So, all right, well, awesome. Well, Andrew, thanks so much for taking some time to hang out with us today and share a little bit about yourself and your business superpower. We certainly appreciate having you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me very much. The pleasure was mine.
You are very welcome.